Today we're going to be laying some tile on the wall right behind us and be showing you guys how easy it is. I've got Dane here, he's a tile expert. So what would you say our first couple steps are, Dane?
Well, first steps in any tile job is prep and layout.
Okay, so for prep, we've got our rosin paper because we have a countertop, a butcher block countertop right below it. We don't want to damage that countertop, so the rosin paper is going to protect that. We tape that down. And then step 2 for layout, can you want to kind of walk us through?
So what we did here, went off our center, just did a dry marked to get us to our end to see what size cut we're going to have.
We did that to make sure that the end piece wouldn't be just a little sliver, correct?
Correct, and that size cut should be the same size cut that's over there, so it looks symmetrical.
Okay. So once we find our center point and we have the measurements of our wall, how do we figure out the amount of tile that we need to buy?
Just take your width times your height, and you get your square footage factored up. 10% waste is what you want to factor, but each box will have what square footage it covers.
Okay, so we know the dimension of the wall. Let's go over here and get a layout on the floor so we can visually see where we're going to be at. We're kind of laying these up towards the ceiling to make sure that we don't have a sliver cut in the ceiling. Just figure out where that's going to end up.
Need to add one more tile.
Okay, so the height from the countertop to the ceiling was 56.5.
Marking that, so we should have this piece as a consistent cut, which is a good sized piece, which it is not a sliver, so we're good to go.
Okay, so if that top piece of tile was gonna be really, really small, we would just cut down our starting point tile. So we just, instead of making our cuts here, we'd make our cuts like right here.
Correct.
The next step would be cutting our tile so that way we can get our bottom row nice and even. So what are the key steps to make sure that you have a nice clean cut?
Well, the key step to a score and snap is the score. So you'll be able to tell once you hear a nice, almost like someone skating on ice, is what you're gonna wanna hear. Is that sounding pretty good? That one is not a clean cut.
So when you say you didn't have enough score, like you didn't put enough pressure on the ends?
The ends did not capture enough pressure. That one sounded good. That one's a lot better.
That's a nice clean cut.
Yep.
For our tools that we have needed here, we have our margin trowel.
Margin trowel is kind of the all-around tile guy's handy tool. We're gonna be using it for a lot of stuff.
Okay. Then we have our wedges. The wedges will kind of align on the countertop just to make sure that everything's level. Next, we have our horseshoe shims, so that way we can space out our tile evenly. And then we have our notch trowel. Do you want to kind of talk about why we chose the trowel that we did and the size?
Chose the 3/16 because it's gonna give us the proper coverage with our mastic.
What's the type of coverage that we want then?
You're shooting for 80% for dry areas.
We're going to be using mastic. Do you want to kind of talk about why we're using mastic over thin set?
There's very few situations that you can use mastic. This is one of them. Water's not an issue, and stress from walking on it is not an issue.
Perfect. Well, I'd say let's start laying some tile.
We're gonna get started. First thing you're gonna wanna do is what's called burning, where you just flat butter. So, then you notch it. The direction we're going is up today.
All right.
What we can do is we can check our first tile for coverage. Could use a little more mud in the middle there, but as far as the sides go, we're looking good. Again, do another check. I like to think that's 80%.
So when I saw you wiggle it, do you want to wiggle it in a certain direction then? You want to go side to side this way, or does it matter?
In this case, we're gonna go left to right. That way it moves the tile enough where it'll collapse the ridges of our notch trowel. So right now what we've ran into, it's just part of the job, is we got a little sliver cut here where the outlet's at. And what that'll then do is encompass this whole tile. So we got a fun cut to make. That fit real good, so when we go to screw the outlet back in, it's going to catch the ears of the outlet, which is what we want. So that way it's secured to the face of the tile later.
All right, so we have our first 3 rows laid and we're coming into where my floating shelf will be. You can see I marked with nails where the studs are. We have a diamond drill bit. We're gonna drill a hole through there so that way that nail can just stay in the wall.
All right, so we're getting to the top row right now. So the thing that you want to do is just cut a couple tile all at once. That way you don't know if it's going to shrink or grow.
All right, so we just finished up laying the tile on the wall. I ran into some trouble on this bottom left side, and most of that was just because I was starting to notice that the tile wasn't lining up evenly. Do you run into that pretty often?
You do. Tile isn't going to be exactly all the same size.
Yeah, so what do we do for that? We just kind of fudged it a little bit
And that's where you see we fudged it a little bit with your wedges instead of our horseshoes. So that's what we had to do in those situations.
So those are the few challenges that we encountered, but do you think anything went well today?
Yes, we had good coverage. That was not an issue. We didn't have much, the wall was flat, so we didn't have an issue with the wall being warped. And the cuts went really well.
All right, we're back for day 2. Next step will be getting all these spacers off the wall. Next step will be grouting. First, we'll go over all the tools that we'll be using. We'll be using the Dust Pro 360. This just attaches onto your bucket, so that way when you're mixing your grout, it sucks up all the dust so it doesn't get into your lungs. A grout float, this will be used for spreading your grout and your tile. A caulking gun, that'll be for the very last step. And then, of course, your bucket. We've got an egg beater mixer to mix the grout with. And then our ultra grouting system. Once we get the grout all laid out, basically just cleaning it up, scrubbing it, making sure that it's nice and polished and get that final finish for your job.
Today we got what personally is my favorite grout, Tech Power Grout. It's an accelerated grout so you can get on washing it a little sooner and get on foot traffic wise a little sooner. This is sanded. Yes,
this is sanded?
We got an 1/8 inch grout joint. We're gonna wanna go with a sanded grout.
Okay, so when would you not go with sanded then?
Anything under an 1/8 inch or glass is what you'd wanna use on sanded for. So how I normally start is I put a little bit of water in. That way it keeps the bucket lubricated so a lot of your grout doesn't stick into the bottom of the bucket dry. For this size job, a little less than half a bag is what I'd probably start with. Once you get it up to the peanut butter consistency, what you want to do is let it sit per the instructions for 5 minutes, what's called slaking. That lets the chemical process start and it also lets the water absorb finally into all the material. Then you re-spin it and then we're good to spread. Walls are just, it's a messy project. But just how Cody's doing it and just small increments of grout, how he's applying it, it's probably the best way you can go about keeping it as clean as you can. That's all it is.
Just finished grouting, went pretty well. And now gonna use our ultra grout system. So we have it filled up with water here. So the nice part about this sponge here, it has these slits in it. Just kind of helps grab that grout and clean it up.
They say once the grout stops pulling on your finger,
okay,
is when you're able to get on the grout.
So when it's not sticking.
When it's not wanting to bite and grab your finger.
Okay.
So.
Okay.
Yep.
So you got this pretty dirty here. I'm gonna press it against this grate. Same thing, just squeegee it out. Get going again. So the second pass on this area is getting a little bit cleaner. That's good. There's a little hole in my grout joint. Dane, what would you recommend there? Just grab some grout and fill it up?
Yep, just grab some grout out of your grout bucket. That's why you don't want to clean that up right away. And like I just found one here, and just fill it in.
All right, so after we just finished our first wipe, what's the next step now?
We're gonna do at least 2 more rinses.
Okay, so we're waiting about 5 minutes, 5-10 minutes?
5 to 15, it kind of
Okay.
varies. Looking for the tile face to start drying and hazing up again.
Okay. All right, so we just finished our first 2 passes of cleaning off the grout. And what do we have to do to knock this project out now?
What we gotta do to knock it out, we need to do another rinse, and then we're gonna need to caulk the edges with our sanded caulk. Look at that. Just make sure you have a wet finger. Just get it started, but make sure you're pressing the caulking into the void. Also scraping off the excess. Then you just take your sponge. Caulking went really good. It's just a little lighter now than what it's gonna dry out to be. It's gonna dry darker to match the color of the grout.
Yeah, I'd say total time was probably 8 hours of working time.
8 hours over the span of 2 days. Yep.
It was, yeah, pretty easy job for a DIY.